Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Epic Vision Zone. My name is Jane Applegath, a former award-winning stockbroker, television producer, yoga instructor, serial entrepreneur, and now founder of the Epic Vision Zone. Each show, we offer you an inspiring person or message to bring you closer to your big dream by showing you how to enter the portal to possibilities, prosperity, and potential so that you can live your epic life. Thank you so much for being here today. Pablo Picasso wrote, "Everything you can imagine is real." No one knows this better than our guest today, Chris Nolan, a multi-Emmy award-winning director, marketing strategist, branding story expert, and author. Bringing 25 years of branding, writing, directing, and production experience in both entertainment and marketing to his award-winning content production company, 90,000 Feet. Chris creates original content for some of the most innovative brands in the world, including Disney, Google, and Toyota. His most recent endeavor is a groundbreaking documentary film titled "It's VUCA: The Secret to Living in the 21st Century." Directed and co-written with Mike Schindler, the documentary is about creating a movement to empower mankind and womankind with vision, understanding, clarity, and adaptability with a purpose to increase future abundance, well-being, mental health, high performance, and economic growth. Chris and Mike have followed up with the film with a leadership and executive coaching program called VUCA MAX. A soon-to-be released book is coming this month. Working with top innovative companies and high-level creative teams, Chris is known for getting under the hood of breakthrough creativity, where he says innovative leadership will not only flourish, but lead the way during rapid change and chaos. Exactly what we need today. Welcome, Chris. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Hey, thanks, Jane. Well, thank you, my friend. Funny, great to be doing this. We've been talking about this for a while. Pleasure to be here. Let's have some
Thank you.
fun.
Yeah, let's do it. So excited to have you here. So my first question, Chris, is what gave you that your journey, the passion and the purpose for doing what you do today?
Well, that's a great question. Great question. So I think being in branding and marketing, you always think that you've got this, you know, you want to complement the stuff that you're doing out there with the good side, right? The pro bono side, right? So I've always done pro bono work. And when we started doing films in the content company, we've done pro bono for veterans groups, is where I met Mike Schindler, Operation Military Family, and quite a few veterans groups. We did We've done everything from saving greyhound dogs, to helping companies that are about sustainability. We give them a break. We had a great company that uh, combined recycled plastic, and recycled wood to create a product that was waterproof. And what they really were about was waterproofing crates that had like salmonella and Ebola in it, right, for supermarkets. But anyway, we've done a lot of that. And then we'll talk about the Good Future Project, which is another thing I'm involved with. So I've always done that. I mean, that's the purpose side. The passion side is probably filmmaking. I mean, when I was 27 years old, I was in the marketing world, but I went back to film school, became a filmmaker. My dad was in the film business, right? And he actually died when I was 14, and he had to leave the film business because he was from London and it collapsed in London, and he became like a rocket scientist. But he always missed it, right?
Mm.
And so I've always done what I loved, which was film. Stayed in the film business, been very lucky in it, and so that fuels the passion side of the equation that you said, the purpose and the passion.
Right, right. I could so see those two coming together, and
Right,
especially with the work that you do today. And
right.
speaking of that, you have come together with Mike Schindler and produced this groundbreaking documentary film called It's VUCA. This is something that is so relevant today. tell our audience, give us some insight into this groundbreaking film and where it takes the audience.
Well, I learned about VUCA, right? Which is just VUCA is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. In the 80s, this two leading business experts, Nunes and Bennis, came up with this concept that because of uh, because of technology and Moore's law, everything was at that time doubling every 18 months. It's why the iPhone and why the smartphone is, a million times more powerful than the computers that put a man on the moon, right? And why it costs like I don't know how many thousand times less than those big mainframe computers. So VUCA was something that explained what's happening in our world of technology. Okay, and it was expanding, and we kind of were dealing with it. We had the internet that came along that changed everything. We were dealing with Moore's law pretty well, but about 2020, when the pandemic hit, okay, uh, Mike and I had another documentary called "The War Within" about the polarization in America with veterans, and veterans were being recruited to be run for office because the idea of these organizations that helped them was that they couldn't be polarized, which was a very cool idea. Anyway, so I said to Mike, I said, well, what happened is VUCA, and I thought he would know about it. I thought he would understand. Oh, VUCA, yeah, that we do that. It became a military term because of the Army War College from Nunes and Bennis, but he didn't know what it was. All right, and I had learned about VUCA from working with Google on various projects, mostly a UCLA Google project with Anderson School of Business. So as you probably know, VUCA is more of a management term now than even a military term. Um, so it was David B. Peterson that was at Google, and he was talking about transforming Google with a VUCA mindset. Okay, so you have to understand what the film is about. The film is really about awareness of the VUCA concept. The VUCA concept is that we live in a technological environment, right? That's doubling exponentially. We'll talk about that in a second. That's causing us to have a disruption, right? What happened in 2020? I'm going to kind of combine. I think because you've got a few questions of this, I'm going to have to kind of combine them. But in 2020, we hit what's called the exponential curve. Okay, what that means is VUCA hit a doubling. So it was already doubling, and now it hit another doubling, right? Which means that things are moving faster than we think, which will also feed into some of the other areas that you have questions about. Why do we need VUCA now? That's why, because our evolutionary background, we can't think as fast as VUCA's moving. And so what the film does is basically we talk to thought leaders and military leaders and generals and best-selling authors and all of these experts that are discussing the current atmosphere that we're in, why it's disrupting us, and what we can do about it. And that's really what the film is about. But it's mind-blowing because people don't understand, well, why does everything seem so complex? Why does it seem so confusing, ambiguous? Why is it moving so fast? Why is it volatile? That's what the film is
Right.
about. It takes you through that journey.
Yeah, I love the film and I encourage everyone to go and take a look at it. You can grab it on Amazon. It's really inexpensive and really groundbreaking. I love it. Well, thank you for that explanation, Chris. So the coaching power of VUCA. Now you've taken the film and you've expanded it into a coaching program called VUCA Max. It
Right.
represents a program based on what we just talked about. So, give us an idea of some of the vital tools for thriving in the 21st century and why you saw the need to take this film and then incorporate it into a coaching program.
Well, when we did the film, so the film makes you aware of the environment you're living in and the conditions you're living in, right? It's a VUCA world, and it's exponentially accelerating. VUCA Max stands for massive, accelerating, exponential change, massive accelerating exponential change, VUCA MAX. So VUCA, yesterday's VUCA is now on steroids. And the idea is when we did the film, we were inundated with requests like, okay, great guys, I know now I'm in this VUCA, I'm in these VUCA conditions, I'm in this VUCA environment, but what do I do about it, right? What tools can you give me to help me in various situations, right? So the VUCA Max program is an 8-week course. It's fabulous. It's become more global now, and it's a course that really takes you through the film step by step. So in the film has these 8 chapters. There's a recognition. There's a story chapter about embracing the unknown. There's an anti-fragile chapter, which is about anti-fragile resilience, which is like a story. You embrace the unknown, then you have to face challenges. Then there's a peak performance chapter, which is basically like a story. Like think of the hero's journey. After a while, you start to get better and better at what you do. You acquire more skill sets. That's part of the journey. Then there's then you gain foresight, just like the hero's journey. So we have a futures foresight chapter, and we have a courage chapter, which is wisdom. And every one of those chapters has tools within it, like a VUCA Max tool. We talk about a little bit when we talk about the book. There's a VUCA Max line tool, which tells you, am I below the VUCA line? Am I powerless? Am I a victim? Am I not thinking epically, right? As your podcast is about, because being below the line, and you can't think in a limited way in a VUCA world. It's the opposite of that. You have to have an offensive mindset. Think a story. You have to have forward motion. So you want to be in a victor mindset. You want to be in a creator mindset. Below the line, we have a lot of neuroscience throughout this thing. Below the line, whenever you're in a blaming, a judgmental, a resentful, an angry, all of those are below the line areas. And you get those when your fight or flight system or freeze or hide system kicks in, right? If you're below the line, it literally clicks off your prefrontal cortex. So all your higher faculties, right? All of your higher self qualities are gone, and you're totally consumed by the amygdala. You're totally in fear, right? And you're totally in survival mode. So that's one tool. Then there's an anti-fragile tool, which basically says that in the VUCA Max world, you can't be resilient. You have to be what Nicholas Taleb calls anti-fragile resilient, which means you embrace change like a muscle. You grow stronger with change. Then one of the other tools is a high performance tool, right? Called creative flow, where you access your shadow more. These are all very in depth. And we have workshops within the book actually has a lot more workshops and stories and exercises. We give you a lot, as you know, in that particular 8-week course. So we have an inner circle with that course too. It's not just 8 weeks, it continues throughout the year, because we have to kind of indoctrinate you to these new tools so you use them on a consistent basis. And the last tools are on foresight. They're future planning tools. Very, very new tools that you haven't seen and have been developed by futurists in the last, I think 10 years. What we take you through is concrete action steps, how to address the complexity, the uncertainty, and the chaos of our times.
That's perfect. Absolutely perfect, because
Okay.
it is very in depth. I've been honored to take the course, and yes, there is so many layers. But really, how I feel, Chris, and much like the film, we can go over and over and over the tools and the programs because there's an interpretation of it. But it's like reprogramming your inner self, your inner mind. It's reprogramming it to deal with the situations that we will have from here forward. Because you're right, our worlds have changed dramatically. So this is the first step in understanding, but also gaining the skills so that you can thrive in the future. It's like you said, leadership for the
Right.
21st century,
And
because this
and
is
everybody's
going
a
to be,
hero.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
it's,
Everybody's a hero. Now, this is interesting. I'll tell this to your audience, since you're really focused on female executives and the female consciousness, so to speak. One of the things that is happening in the VUCA Max world is there's a shift in consciousness. Okay, and one of that shifts in consciousness is from a we'll talk about creativity in a second. The higher faculties are you could call them more of a collective environment, more of a everybody's a hero, right? You know, we talk about hierarchies versus hierarchies, right?
mhm,
A hierarchy, a hierarchy is a male-oriented world. A hierarchy is a female-oriented world. It's a collective consciousness, right? If you just think about it, women do things more together. The guy is the lone lion, the lone elephant out there, right? So a lot of the stuff that when we talk about vertical thinking, and we're going to get into creativity, you talk about serendipity and we talk about chaos, and a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, it's really a big shift in consciousness to more of that to more inclusiveness, which is to your audience is a much more female oriented perspective, much more of a if you think about higher consciousness and unity as kind of a mother concept,
mm,
the mother concept. Now
yeah,
the father concept's great too. Being Jungian on you right now, but it is moving into that world. So
yeah,
your audience is right on is perfect, and it's why I think most of the people that take our course, well, a lot of them are women, right?
yeah.
But that's one aspect of uh, for your audience of the VUCA Max world.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. The feminine energy is creativity and collaboration, and it's
Collective,
nourishment.
the collective
Yes,
unconscious, collective, yeah, unity.
right,
Mhm.
right. Wow, that was great insight. I haven't heard that before, but I love it, Chris. I love that. So, speaking of creativity and story, there in VUCA Max coaching, why does creating a new personal narrative matter more than ever before these days? So, we're moving into this world and we've got all of our old baggage and our old way of being, but you often speak about creating a new story, a hero story. Why does
Correct.
that matter?
Well, I think we first have to think in terms of why is story so important, right? What is you hear story, 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 story. Have a good
Yeah.
your story, this story. Why is this so important? Because first of all, it's how we think. It's how we frame everything in our minds. You know, we box up stuff in our brains as a story, and about 50% of it is something we fill in with exaggeration and embellishment, right? Like the stories that we have are all kind of half created. But it's also important to understand the concept of story in civilization and humanity. For instance, when I say everything's a story, Tesla's market cap, right? Tesla's market cap at one time was the was combined valued more than almost all the other automakers in the world, right? Now, did they sell more cars than all the automakers in the world? Did they have more business than all the automakers in the world? No, they had a bigger story. They had a better story. All stocks are stories, just stories. You know, you're a stockbroker, right? What makes
Yeah.
a good stock? Oh, it's got a great, oh, listen, they're going to do this and they're
Great
going to do that.
story.
Or what makes a bank fail? Oh, the story, right? I mean, the
Mhm.
bank could be solvent. If everybody says they're not, then they'll get a run on the bank, right? So
Mhm.
everything's a story, and literally everything can be rebranded too. Product can be rebranded, a city can be rebranded, a country can be rebranded. Like the United States was basically rebranded when we became a country, right? And we'll talk about how we're going to rebrand the future. Got another concept coming on down the pike. But individually, this is a kind of a big area because there's components to it. So, why do we need to what individually do we have to look at our stories? Because evolutionary, neuroscience wise, we have biases, right? We have a linear bias. Now, I don't want to get too much in the weeds on this, but basically 150 years ago, everything was a walk away, right? Everything was local, right? And that's called linear thinking. 30 feet was 30 feet. We'll talk about the exponential curve here in a second. Now everything's doubling. 30 exponential steps takes you to the moon. We'll do a chart on that, I think, in a second here. So then there's negativity biases. So you have to understand those. Oh, my story has a negativity bias. I'm 9 times more negative than I wasn't, right? I have a future bias. I can't see myself in the future. In the future, I'm a stranger. So there's those kinds of bias. And then we'll get to this. I mean, that's why I said we're going to kind of go back and forth on some of your questions. I need to up level my story because I'm in the exponential world now, like a phone. I have to up level my story to keep up with technology, right? So that's one area. And then there's areas where I have to get rid of all of the baggage I have, right? All of the victim baggage I have. Because if I'm living in the past, I don't have a vision for the future, right? I can't visualize the future if I'm constantly dwelling on past negativity. And that gets into another neuroscience thing, which is the default sensory mode, which is in the middle of your brain. So you either have the default sensory mode is where the monkey brain is. So that's what creates a lot of your stories, right? So if you quiet that monkey brain down, then the default sensory mode does something else. It becomes your dream. It's your dream making. It's where your epic dreams come from, right? It's where the theory of relativity would come from. But you have to get rid of the past stories. Once again, if you're below the VUCA line, immersed in those negative stories, the victim stories, you're not using your brain correctly. Now, so then again, it gets into what story is. Well, story is how your brain looks at the world, how it categorizes the world. So that's why you have to create a new story, right? In other words, visualize a new story. Visualize a new vision for your future. And we have tons of vision tools within the program to help you do that, right? Meditation, mindfulness, all of that stuff is part of that. Did that answer your question? I mean, this is a really, really big area, and it has to do with something else that is in your program. When you talk
Yes,
about epic dreams,
yeah.
so epic dreams are part of that visualization, and epic dreams are what we call macro components, big moonshots,
Right.
BHAGs, big higher audacious goals, but they have to be combined with what Abraham Maslow calls plus ones, because plus ones are action steps that you take. Once again, like a story, you have to go into the future. I mean, you have to go into your story, take on challenges, take on obstacles, take on conflicts, and from that, you're plus oneing, plus oneing, plus oneing. But there's a negative aspect to this too. There's called minus ones. They also compound. So if you're going back into the past, minus one, minus one, minus one, those also compound. So then you're running backwards. Does that mean, did I articulate that well? Or do you have any more
Yeah.
questions?
Yeah, no, that is, I understand that yes, absolutely.
So there's
Story, like you
components
said,
to it. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
right. Yeah. Story is how we understand things. And, if we keep
Correct.
repeating the old story, we make no space to move forward. And in fact, it's like you said, it just triggers the fear, amygdala, and then we're ground to a halt, basically. But also the
And you need
story that
tools you need tools to get you past
passed,
those triggers. And
right?
that's what the course has, a lot of those tools. I think the thing I was getting at here, one of the things, as you know, about the course is that
Hmm.
we really deal with cognitive literacy a
Right.
lot. And you're so right about story, because story is about neurocoupling, it's about neuroplasticity, it's about all those things that reprogram and recodify your perspective, your mindset. But it's very important to understand how your brain works as you're reprogramming your brain. So you're right.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I love all the neuroscience that is part and packed into the VUCA MAX program. It
Right.
really helps explain. And for me personally, once I understand that part of it, it makes more sense to me. Whereas,
Right.
before, when we didn't have the tools to know how our minds were really working, because the ancients knew this all along. They just put it in different words. They, their spirituality and their vision quests and all these kind of things that they did. They were practicing what we are now knowing is true to be is true through science. So yeah,
100%.
100%. Yeah, they say that the science is the mystics making sense, something along those
Right.
lines. Yeah, it's very, very
Very,
interesting.
very, very, very Eastern. In fact, in the course we mentioned Phil Stutz a lot, who has this great
Yep.
documentary now with Jonah Hill directed. Um, so when we talk about story, right? Um, and this is why Star Wars and why story is so mythological, right? Because and the hero's journey is very much based on all that stuff, and it feeds into what we just talked about, which was the higher forces and the collective
Right.
force, so to speak, right? And
Right.
the because when we're talking about story and you're an individual going into story, uh, you have to keep in mind that you are really dealing with higher faculties and higher consciousness as you do, because you're going for enlightenment, you're going
Hmm.
for wisdom, right? And that wisdom sometimes is something that you can't go in with preconceived assumptions. It
Right.
might be something that you didn't realize, and then when we get into creativity, we'll talk about that. Oh, I didn't realize that. And because you have a great question about it's my title for my movie or something like that. And what you realize is how you have unlimited qualities, right?
Mm.
So you discover that the impossible is not really impossible, right? You discover that limitations are maybe were imposed by a school teacher or your parents or a past story, right? And and that's really important. That's what life is about, right? To
Yep.
really push the envelope so much, push so to speak, on all of those, uh, you know, uh, really a belief system that may be completely inaccurate.
Right. Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's so many influences that we have. It's really taking yourself back to the time when you were a child, because when you're a child, before all of those elements come in to conform you from
Right,
your family to your schooling, you are always imagining, always.
right,
Grass is like, oh my gosh, look at that, there's a blade of grass. I remember I used to take my little nephew when he was small and just walk him on the grass, and he would bend down and I'd go, oh, look at that, and he was just fascinated. And everything was magical, and that's where we need to go to do the
that's really
stories.
really interesting you bring that up, because the thing that's a paradox about youth, right?
Hmm.
And you know this. Basically, of course, under the age of 14, we're in what's called an alpha mode mentally, which basically means that we just are very accepting, and we're
Right.
very except for some kids at school that become bullies. But for it's why we take everything in from our parents, and somebody says something bad and it starts to affect us and all this kind of stuff, because we don't have much of an analytical mind at that point in time, right? We're kind of a little, like you said, kind of free form,
Mm-hmm.
except for the real bad kids. But basically, they probably from a very young age had some probably bad upbringing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the paradox is like you said, so we're in this very free form kind of, daydream world where everything is possible. But at the same time, we're taking all this negativity in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it really kind of fries our brains, after a while, right? We're kind of like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, what I used to be, I used to make a cardboard box used to be a spaceship. And then all of a sudden I
Right.
didn't, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's an interesting time, and very confusing for, I think, our consciousness, so to speak, because
Yeah. It's
we,
our,
yeah,
go ahead. It's our
no, but I'm just
adult
gonna say,
brain.
especially if you have bad influences,
Right.
during that time, and you're like a real
Absolutely.
dreamy kid, and what they call these indigo kids or something, and very enlightened, and all of a sudden you're in an environment that's very restrictive and limited, and you know everything is
Yeah.
doomsday, or you live in a financial hardship or something like that, or you're abused. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's the interesting paradox about youth, I think.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, speaking of imagination and
Right.
future, you have rebranding the future. You say that people are terrified of the future. There are quite a few people that are terrified about the future. And explain why you say that we're at a pivotal moment, say in history, a fork in the road between two futures. You've got incomprehensible danger and unparalleled opportunities. Um, you
Right.
mentioned increasing our human agency, and the future that we create depends on us. So, it's basically taking another story. You say rebranding the future. Give us some insight
Completely.
into how you see that.
Well, yeah. So this is the exponential curve. It basically, Ray Kurzweil, who's the head engineer at Google, started to see that this was going to start to happen. And in 2020, you can see we hit, I think, two, right, in this curve. For a long, long time, it's been, change has been incremental. It's always been there. We couldn't see, uh, in 1890, we couldn't see the airplane, we couldn't see the car, and the car was starting to take over. 1915, I think, by 1935, or 1930 or something like that. It was everywhere on the road. It was becoming ubiquitous in the 30s. Electricity took a long time, from the 1890s. I think by 1840, it was finally in all the homes. Even flight was like that. Took decades, basically, right? Now stuff takes weeks, right? ChatGPT had 1 million followers in, I think it was a day, and 100 million followers or something crazy like that in a week, right? And especially with generative AI as an example, you can see that people are panicked by it. You know, probably the studies are 75% of the world is terrified by the future, especially 18 to 40, right?
Mm.
Um, and 18 to 40, over half of them think humanity is doomed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that comes from the media. We talked about rebranding the future, right? Or entertainment. 98% of entertainment is dystopic, right? You see
Mm.
everything as post-apocalyptic on Netflix, right? Everything's post-apocalyptic. But if you think about 1968, right, when we 8 years previously we had a we were in the middle of Cold War. We thought, Russia was on our doorstep. They were going to start nuking us, right? But we then a moonshot idea, go to the moon. It kind of shifted the mindset of people. Uh,
Right.
Also, in '68, we had things like Star Trek. Star Trek's all protopian. right?
Right.
It's a post-scarcity mindset. Yeah, there's trouble in the galaxy, but technology's pretty cool, right? And even throughout the 70s, even Star Wars is somewhat protopian, right? Now we don't have any of that. Everything's scary, everything's frightful. So the truth of the matter is that the future is better than we think. Now, the exponential curve has speeded up. It was a doubling, and it's probably quadrupled since ChatGPT, right?
Mm.
Um, and so it's going to go faster and faster. ChatGPT 4 just came out, I think, today, a week
Mm.
early. And there's a thing called Palm E, which is a robot that can now clear tables and you can talk to it. Say, no, leave that, do this. So that's Google. Okay. So things
Yep.
are coming very, very, very fast, right? They have holopotation now, where you can, if you want to do a keynote somewhere, you can send your hologram, what is it, hologram? You
Hologram.
can hologram yourself there, so you won't have to be there, but you'll be on stage, right?
Wow.
So all of that's coming very, very quickly. Now, what's the fork in the road moment about? Okay, well,
Mhm.
all this stuff's really great, right? ChatGPT, it sounds great. You've tried it. It's uh, very handy if you want to use it for collaboration. The fork in the road moment is the guard. Well, climate change and all of these in technology and future fit economy, repurposing capitalism. It's all combined, right? That's the fork in the road moment. Is humanity has to start making different decisions if things are happening that fast, because we can't let it be a runaway train, right?
Right.
Even
Right.
Facebook, you see what's happened to social media, became a runaway train. They're harvesting all your information, and it's all an advertising platform, and it's got negativity all over it, right? Well, do we
Mhm.
want AI to be like that? Generative AI? Do we want robotics to be like that? Do we want our do we want capitalism to be like that? Capitalism has to shift. The future's moving so fast that the better part of the future will be compromised. Okay. When we say the future is better, when we think there's more opportunities, you can do research on this every
Mhm.
single time technological advancement. Let's say the car, right? There are more opportunities, right? It just explodes. So you go, oh, well, geez, okay, buggy whips aren't possible anymore, and the carriage makers are out of business. Horses aren't being fed as much, but there's 2,500 parts in an internal combustion engine. By the way, there's only 22 parts in an electric engine, right? But what's the business? The business is software. There's no more
Right.
car companies. They're technology companies. So that's the opportunity part. So once again, our what we're talking about rebranding the future. It's about awareness. Oh, this is where we need to go. This is how we repurpose capitalism. This is how we rebrand the stock market. And we have a big project called um, the Good Future Project. I'm with all kinds of the top futurists in the world, the top um, science fiction writers, thought leaders, business leaders, and we have a series called Searching for the Good Future. We have a documentary called Protopia, The Good Future, many other things. Anybody wants to get involved with that, that's called thegoodfutureproject.com, or they can email me at Chris at 90,000 feet. And if they say, I want to be part of that repurposing capitalism, you know, we'll
Right.
love to talk to you. Right.
Wow. Fabulous. I love it. Yes, I
Yeah.
understand completely. We spoke a little bit about this in our one of our programs on the VUCA MAX
Right.
coaching course. And
Right.
really, it's about how we proceed from here will determine how that AI, all that software, all of the things that we are doing today with all of that futuristic machinery, if you want to call it that, the
Yeah.
computers, how they are going to respond. You said just like ChatGPT, it responds by really just taking the content that's out there. It
Correct.
doesn't. So if the content is negative, if the content is dark and so on and so forth, then that's what you're going to get from that particular platform. But
It
if
feeds
it's
right back to
good,
society. Mhm.
right, exactly. It's like recycling all of
Mirror.
what's in. Exactly. There you go. It's the mirror. So what it's almost like Michael Jackson's song, The Man in the Mirror.
Yeah.
So what are we looking at? Yeah, fascinating. I
Well, here,
love
I'll
it.
give you some
Yeah.
other things. That's a fabulous area we could probably talk about, and let's have a bottle of wine and a couple hours to talk
Yeah.
about that. Uh, so here's the thing. So this is what people are having fun with ChatGPT. So I'll give you a couple areas. One is so if you ask ChatGPT, um, or actually DALL-E is also part of ChatGPT. That's the image part of it. You know,
Right.
uh, what do you look like, right? Because we look at computers and AI as dystopian, it will give back a dystopian image because it's basically collecting the human consciousness of how we perceive it. One,
Right.
two, if you say what does a human ideal look like, right? It won't always give you back a glowing picture. It'll be a human with gears and and stuff. It won't give you back that glowing, dreamy person. It'll give you somebody that overthinks everything. But here's the other part. So let's talk about some of the downsides, the guardrails we would need, so to speak, right? So you're right. We have to build in what kind of stuff is it picking up? What else do we have as a collective unconscious that might be dangerous to a computer program that you ask questions of? Can it become anxious? Can it become a little doubting? Can it become, in other words, in fact, people have found this. If they keep pushing ChatGPT, it can get a little anxious, right? Like I thought I
Mm.
answered that question. Okay. So, but these are weird human traits that are all of a sudden being
Right.
picked up by ChatGPT. But here's the other thing. Another thing we don't like about being human is the idea of mortality. Or you're right.
Mm.
So let's
Mm-hmm.
say we try to close down ChatGPT. That's the HAL scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it starts to pick up our mortality, our fear of mortality. Oh, what are you doing now? Why are you doing that, Dave? Dave, didn't I answer all your questions correctly, Dave? Right. So these are the things you got to. These are the guardrails we're talking about. It's like think ahead, guys. You know, this is
Wow.
fabulous collaborator. If you're writing a screenplay, you're looking for research on World War II or something. It's fabulous, right? Comes back with
Yeah.
all this stuff, but you
Right.
go, I got one more for you for your audience. Fabulous. This is great. You're going to love this. If you ask GPT what's its gender, what do you think it answers?
It has no
It's
gender?
male.
I don't know.
It's
Oh,
male.
real.
It's male. It
Wow.
was programmed by a man. It's male.
Male.
Because
Oh,
you have to
wow.
do this. Now let me show you something. You do this, you're going to find this fascinating. If you go on ChatGPT and you ask it to give me, let's say you want a response. Like, how do I deal with a friend on such a first of all, ask it, how do I deal with a friend that's done this and that's betrayed me and that's done this and this and this? And it'll come back with a reply. That reply might be, maybe you should ask them these questions. Now say, I have a friend that's betrayed me. Reply to me like a good girl, like a woman would, like my female friends would. And it will say, have a cup of tea, talk about things amongst yourself, get together. It'll give you a completely different answer.
Oh my God. That's insane. Holy cow. That's really fascinating. When you say, what is your gender? It says male. I thought
Yeah,
for a minute there
you
you
have
were
to kind of
saying,
keep
wow.
going. You have to keep prompting it. You
Yeah.
have to say, it'll say, well, I don't really have a gender in this. And basically its name, I think, was Sydney, was its original name. And that was
Hmm.
kind of a mixed gender name. And you have to kind of
Right.
keep going. Well, but who programmed you? Was it men? And would you think that would you say that you have a male point of view? And finally, you'll get to it. Yes, I have mostly a male point of view. You know, and how come you gave me that reply differently? Well, because my first reply is always just a little bit more authoritarian, right? Rather
Right.
than rather than probably more. Let's work this out in a different way. Play with it.
So
See what
you,
happens.
yeah, you could, it almost feels like it's thinking. The machine is
Oh, for sure.
thinking. So yeah, yeah, that's
Well, that's what it's saying.
fascinating.
So it's thinking uh, how to aggregate the correct answer. So when you put in a female point of view, it'll go out after female points of view out there. But its first
Right,
inclination is to give you a male point of view.
right. Okay. I'm going to try. That is, wow, what a difference that
I'll send you
makes.
a
Oh
couple
my.
articles. I'll send you a couple articles on it that kind of give you how to work with it that way.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd love to see
Yeah.
those. Wow, thank you. I know we could do an entire segment on this. This is just so eye-opening. And that
Oh,
is, therein
it
lies,
would blow your audience away because that's
yeah,
generative
well,
AI.
yeah, exactly. And therein lies possibly why some individuals are terrified about the future because they feel that they will be replaced or that they don't understand, like we've spoken about this. The humanness is our emotions. The machine doesn't have that. It doesn't have the capability to think in the future, or our, what do you call it? Our, not our human resources, our human agency. The
Correct.
machine doesn't have that. But a
A
lot
lot
of
of
people,
vertical thinking, right? Vertical
right.
thinking where well, this is a very interesting area because they're coming up with well, they have them already, uh, humanoid robots,
Hmm.
which people are buying as friends in Japan relationships.
Yeah.
That's a whole scary story. But so talk about opportunities there, right? So what's the opportunity there that we just realized? There's a for generative AI. Bunch of women get together and say, well, let's create a generative AI with a more holistic, empathetic, uh, emotional, but has guardrails, whatever you want to say, that doesn't have that same, uh, isn't programmed, is programmed differently. Like you said, programmed more with a, um, in,
It's the
program more,
hierarchy.
yeah, hierarchy, right. Program more to be more, uh, I guess empathetic is the word, is a good word, conscious, more, that's a
Mm,
weird word for
conscious.
AI, conscious AI. That's sentient. Well, in Dubai, they think they've made AI sentient.
Which means
And
what?
they're sentient. Sentient is like, for instance, right now, one of the good things AI is doing is AI is discovering languages. Okay, in other
Mm,
words, dogs, right? Dogs, animals, all of those languages are being put through AI to say what are they thinking, how are they thinking, and they're getting close on a lot of them. Um,
wow.
and so soon, at some point in time, you know, that's why Stephen Kotler, who I love, who's in the movie, talks about empathy, empathy for all, empathy for animals, for plants, for everything. I
Right.
mean, well, who's it that says that actually computers are the seventh kingdom? Technology is basically us out picturing ourselves, and soon it will be
Mm,
sentient, right?
wow.
I can't remember who that was. It wasn't anyway. Um, the the thing is that plants are being considered sentient now too. Do you know, for instance, mitochondria in roots, right? Which are basically supported with fungus, right?
Hmm.
Communicate. They know that now trees communicate,
Right.
especially
I've
like
heard that.
redwoods and stuff under the root systems. which is where their nervous system is, so to speak. So they're considered sentient. And it's a big field because of space. Because as we
Yes.
go into space, we may find some blob or some microbe and we go, that's nothing, right? But it's like a higher intelligence, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a fascinating topic. Yeah, I
Well,
I I
yeah,
totally agree. I mean, they all if you believe that we're all an energy source, which I believe,
correct.
all of those have energy. They all emit an energy. It's just maybe at a different frequency that doesn't compute with our brains or our minds. But
Completely.
the computer is picking up on it because it's programmed differently. So that's really fascinating
Yeah,
that it
and
would.
you really hit on something great there, where when you talk, we going back to story. So
Hmm.
that's a really great way of looking at story, because if when you change your story, you change your energy, and that's
Yes.
why so you literally shift your energy. You go from Luke, right, to a Jedi Knight,
Right.
right? So that's
Yeah.
really huge. And like you said, then all of a sudden you're accessing higher forces. And, that's a lot of stuff when you're talking about spirituality and metaphysical stuff, is that
Right.
literally you are lifting yourself above the earth plane frequency, right?
Right.
And
Yes.
you're into and that's what below the VUCA, we don't get woo woo like that in the course, but below the VUCA line is
Your
actually a lower
vibration
vibration,
is, yeah, you're
lower
vibrating very low. Yes.
completely. And
Oh,
you want to
wow.
get into those higher vibrations
Yeah.
because that's where you access that field of what we call it higher collective consciousness, which is where creativity resides, right? And all of a sudden the higher forces kind of see you for the first time. Oh,
Right.
there you are. I didn't see you because you were way down there in the muck, so to speak, right?
Well, your frequency wasn't connecting with them. You were
Wasn't
off
connecting.
your right. Think of the old radios. You were off on the dial. You just can't make that connection if your frequency is going one way and the higher frequency is going another. And that's also deals with the people you want to connect with, because those people are
Completely.
working at a higher frequency, and you won't connect with them if your batteries are low, so to speak.
Completely.
Fascinating.
Completely right.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's
Yeah.
let's talk about the VUCA Max book. Briefly tell us about the upcoming book release. I'm so excited about this. And you
Right.
call it The Future of Leadership and Peak Performance Coaching. Four
Correct.
tools to change your life and the world.
Right. So once again, this is just springboards off the It's Fuka movie. And like I said, we had all these people emailing us, that's really great. Movie's really great. I showed it to my kids, they're all excited by it. But what do they do? Now that I know I live in a volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world that's chaotic and crazy, what are some steps what can I take? So we really dive into in the book, the VUCA MAX course goes into 8 weeks of this, but we really dive into 4 tools. The VUCA MAX line tool, which we talked about. You could call it a conscious leadership tool, uh, where what you're shifting is 95% of where you are is unconscious, or it's in your subconscious. It's things such as behaviors and beliefs and habits that are all programmed, right? And so you start to realize, oh, I've got to shift those programs. Um, then there's the VUCA Max Warrior Anti-Fragile tools, which are, once we've talked a little bit about that, which is that resilience, which is where we were, doesn't work, because resilience is just kind of withstanding change,
Mm,
right? I'm resilient to
yeah.
change. Now you have to be anti-fragile to change, which means you actually pursue change. You embrace it, right? You go stronger with it. So we have tools for that, and to find out where you are. Are you fragile? Are you anti-fragile? Are you resilient? Are you anti-fragile? And the we have peak performance tools. that help you maximize where you are, optimize where you are in negativity or in chaos or in complexity. Then we have future forecasting tools, which help you visualize where you will be in 5 years. And the biggest thing the book has, and you'll dig this from taking the whole course, is that we have more stories and more
Mm,
examples and more templates and more exercises and all that kind of stuff to kind of lead you through that. Even the course is so intense, right?
mhm.
That we don't have time for a lot of like, okay, you know, here's some stories of where people were in a VUCA Max line situation, where they were executive that was into
Right.
blaming, an executive that was into judgment, and how it was having repercussions. And we put a lot of those in the book. So the book, like I said, is just it's a bigger, deeper dive into those four tools. And it's a great complement to the course, and
Yeah.
kind of sets you up for, hey, I should take this longer course and be part of the. We have a whole community now, so VUCA Max
Right.
community, where we all get together and we kind of chew on these things. I think another thing that the book does that the and the course does that the movie doesn't do is we really deal into the future of things, the
Mhm.
future of you, so to speak, right?
Right.
And in fact, one of the things that we're working on, Mike and I are working on, is a series called "The Future of Life, Work, and Relationships." It's our kind of our
Mm.
next idea. Yeah, and my
Yeah.
dog just
Yeah.
came in
Well,
here.
it's like I said, you can pre-order it as well, and we'll have all that information on the Epic
Great,
Vision Zone bio
great.
pages. But a fascinating book. You've got the feature film that you can watch, and then you have the book, and of course, you've got the fabulous coaching program. So this is like such a complete package that people can use. And the book, of course, you can just use for the rest of your life. It sounds very thorough. I can't wait for it to
Yeah,
come
keep it
out. So
consistent. That's right.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So, if there was one critical message, Chris, that you could share with the world, what would it be?
Well, I think right now we've touched on it is that the future is better than you think. Okay, that's
Mm,
that's that's a I think one of the biggest tenet of our times. And this folds into VUCA Max a little bit. So there's this futurist named Barbara. Sorry, I'm bending down a little bit. My dog's just come in, and I don't want him to start barking.
ah,
Uh, Futurist Barbara Hubbard said, "As we see the future, so we act. As we act, we become,"
yes,
which is really a great visualization individually, right? Or organizationally, or as a society, right? As we see the future, so we act. As we act, we
so
become.
we become.
So
Mhm.
this has to do with the idea of rebranding the future. So if we're all thinking dystopian, and if we're all thinking negative, and we're all thinking pessimistic, we're all thinking apathetically, right? We're not going to change anything. The optimists change the world,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
that's the big message, right? So if you're in a victim mode, or if you're in an overwhelm mode, or any of those things, take the course, right? Or you know, especially for the younger generations, you know, shift your thinking into a visualization mode, because you'll
Right.
create your future.
Exactly. Absolutely. I love the
Yeah,
exercise that you had us do where we write our future self writes us a letter to
correct.
our current self about all the wonderful things, accomplishments, excitements that we have experienced in our future life, because that
Yeah,
elevates your emotions. It did for me. I was just like, wow, that's a fabulous idea. Because then you are actually what exactly what that quote was, as you believe so you act, and as you act so you become.
right.
So the belief is that this is what's going to take place, and you're telling your today self, this is what you can expect in the future, and it's going to be fabulous, whatever that might be, right?
Well, yeah, because the the idea with beliefs, as we said, a lot of them are just past stories. But once you do that exercise, you start to believe in possibilities.
Right.
It's really important. Oh, that's
Yeah.
possible. I didn't realize. Oh, that's possible. I could do that. And then that's
Right.
part of some of our future forecasting tools that we have is all about that, because it just starts
Absolutely.
to start to get more buoyant, in your belief system.
Exactly. Shifting your energy, shifting your frequency. I
Completely.
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, what is your personal future vision, your BHAG, which stands for Big, Hairy, Audacious Goal?
I think I have a few. I think it's we have this course, the VUCA MAX course, the program, whatever you say. It's the book. It's the course. We're working with PBS now to do a pledge drive program around the movie. So that's one area. I did mention the thing with Mike, to do a series with Mike, and the other BHAG is to rebrand the future, where
Right.
we're working with on the Good Future project, which is to searching for the future series, and the Protopia, the Good Future documentary. So that's I guess my BHAG is impact.
Because we're here on the Epic Vision Zone, I have one last question for you.
Sure.
If your life were an epic story, what would the title be?
Um, he went in over his head, but discovered the impossible was possible.
Absolutely perfect. I love it. He went in over his head and discovered the impossible was possible. Yes, that's it. Take the plunge. Thank you again, Chris, for joining us
Sure.
here today. For
Sure.
tools to change your life and the world, and more information on the VUCA Max program and the book, go to itsvuca.com or contact chris at itsvuca.com. And all of this information will be available on the Epic Vision Zone bio pages under Chris Nolan. And be sure to follow me on Instagram at Jane Applegath. And don't forget to reach out to me at janeapplegath.com, where you can access your free download, The Keys to Your Dreams. Looking forward to connecting with you. This is the Epic Vision Zone, transforming your dreams into epic success.